All right. Thank you, everyone, for sticking out to the end. We got a great panel of VCs sort of switching up the roles. They're going to come pitch to you. I did have a joke prepared, but it was a little bit political, and I don't want a investigation by the Justice Department into me, so we're going to skip that. But simple rules. Each of the VCs will get 5 minutes to present their firm, their investment mandate. We're not taking any Q&A from the audience members, but there will be ample time after the session for you to connect with the folks. So with that, I'm happy to introduce our first presenter, Michael Fenn from IASO Ventures.
Hello. All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming out and joining. Happy to be here. So I'm Michael Fenn. I'm an investor with IASO Ventures. A little background on me, and then I'll dive into IASO and talk a little bit about what we're interested in and how we invest. PhD in biomedical engineering. My background is on mainly drug delivery, nanomaterials. I've worked in a number of different operating and company building roles over the past decade and a half. A lot of work on corporate development and licensing. But just generally love to build companies across the board in the biotech world. So I've been with IASO kind of since the inception of the fund. We've been around now for about 4 years, a little bit over. IASO is based in Boston. We have 2 funds that we actually invest out of. Our first fund is primarily focused. Both of our funds are really early stage funds. We like to invest at the seed or Series A. We like to be early and invest, be early in the process of the company building to really kind of be able to help support that process. We have 2 funds, as I mentioned. The first fund was founded again about 4 years ago. We primarily invest in biotechs across the board, platform companies, or what we call therapeutically enabling technologies. It could be a therapeutic platform. It could be more of a data-driven or more health tech platform. But whatever it is, it has to be enabling of therapeutic development in some way. The other way we often frame that is that it's got to solve a problem that pharma would have. So if pharma has a need or pharma has a problem, those are the types of companies, those are the types of technologies or platforms that we look for and to invest in. That also largely comes from our LP base. We have several pharma who are LPs, investors in the fund that we work with, a lot of folks who have been in pharma, so we like to deeply, deeply understand what those challenges are and what those unmet needs are that pharma has and what they're looking to solve, not just now, but 5 and even 10 years into the future, right? And that's where we're looking at these early stage companies. Our second fund that we launched about now 20 months ago, I guess it's almost been 2 years, it's called the Neuro Impact Fund. This also we're largely focused on the early stage, but as the name implies, the Neuro Impact Fund, this is entirely focused on neuroscience and CNS. So it's kind of unique in that way where we really specialize in a deep understanding of the neurospace, especially neurodegenerative diseases, epilepsy, rare neurological disorders, where we have a deep bench of experts, advisors, EIRs, also several pharma who are involved as partners as well, that are focused on the CNS space. So again, really deeply understanding what are the challenges, what are the needs. And a space that's historically, of course, been very challenging, probably the most challenging therapeutic area that there is. And so we really like to try to address and understand what the unmet needs are. In that particular fund, we're very actively investing out of the Neuro Impact Fund. We can invest early stage. We can also invest later stage. We also have done some company builds in new co-formation as well. And so we're looking to find interesting ideas, therapeutic concepts in the CNS space, especially in neurodegenerative diseases or epilepsy, that are new ways, new modalities, new mechanisms or pathways of addressing those diseases. So we, again, early stage investors, we also do new co-formation, as I mentioned. So it's something I'm happy to talk with you about after. I know we're not doing Q&A. But if you have an idea for forming a company, I'd gladly discuss that with you. We have a really broad network. I mean, in addition to capital, we like to bring people. We like to bring expertise and talent. We also like to bring connections to pharma and the biotech world, also service providers, CROs, et cetera. Whatever can really be enabling of allowing you to advance your programs. The way that we really like to look at things, again, is there's got to be a major need that has to be met. There has to be a market opportunity that can be well defined, and we like to really deeply understand the positioning within that market. The market can be highly competitive. It can be highly challenging, like neurodegenerative disease. But if there is a true need to be met and you can make a strong case for how you would position yourself within that market, that's what we like to hear. With that, we're also, again, early stage focused, but we like to understand what does a product actually look like. So if it's a drug, what would that drug eventually look like, even if that seems a long way off? How does that drug fit into the market, not of course now, but in the future of what would that landscape look like? We really like to deeply understand and know that you're thinking about where does this fit into the treatment paradigm, where does it fit into the commercial market, how does it get paid for, how do patients get access to it? Let's see, what else? How are we doing on time? Good? Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Next up, I'd love to introduce Matt Clancy from LabCorp.
Thank you. All right, hey everyone. My name is Matt Clancy. I am with LabCorp and LabCorp Ventures, so thanks to the Yale team for the invitation. Excited to tell you a little bit more about what we do. So we are corporate VC, investing off the balance sheet. We don't have a discrete fund. I'll get the business out of the way first here. So we are a strategic minority investor. We don't lead. We do often request a board observer as part of our investment, and the reason for that is we are looking for strategic insight above all else. We're mostly motivated by trying to learn about novel or strategic spaces of interest to LabCorp, areas that are strategic adjacencies to our core business. And to do that, we often like to observe how the company is progressing through board meetings, interactions, in-kind services, other collaborations. So with that, we'll get into some of the meat of what we do. We are an early stage minority investor. As I said, we do often invest around the seed or Series A stage, sometimes Series B or into the growth stage, but often we're pretty early. Our average check size, I don't know if I mentioned that, it's about $500,000 to $2 million. We do consider higher or lower depending on the opportunity. We do also reserve capital for follow-on investments. As I said, we do like to follow companies throughout their entire life cycle. We like to collaborate as often as possible. As you can see on the slide here, we've got about 50 active investments. About 60% of those we've got some kind of strategic collaboration with. Total investment deployed to date is about $300 million, about 125 of that's still active and out. We were founded in 2012 with about 90 total direct investments. We don't often invest with the intent to acquire. It has happened. We invest in pretty much everything other than therapeutics. We also used to say medical devices, and then we invested in a medical device, so it's not really true anymore, but really we're focused on, areas that'll touch our core business. And some of the key themes for what gets us motivated or interested in investing often are thinking about how do we make healthcare delivery more personalized? How can we actually think about personalized medicine, precision delivery of care, things of that nature? How can we enable more convenient or ready access to healthcare? Consumerism is a huge deal for us right now. Thinking about digital health tools, that's also been a big theme for us. Clinical decision support tools, things of that nature. How can we make testing more accessible? We've got a very large portfolio of point-of-care solutions and at-home testing. That's been a large motivator for us. As I said, the one medical device that we've invested in is an at-home cervical cancer screening tool. How can we simplify logistics, operations, et cetera? Also, how can we leverage data and AI? I think that's a huge theme for everybody. How can we lean on the millions upon millions of data and lab results that we've got in our network and create a more personalized solution, and how can we do that with partners? So this is just a snapshot of 2025, just to give you a flavor. We are fairly active. We had 12 new direct investments last year. We had 5 exits. We had 37 in new capital deployed. We've got a snapshot of some of the companies that we invested in here. It's probably not critical that we go through all of those, but just to give folks a sense of how active we are, what we're looking at. some of the categories that we're investing in as of late, which we can get into a little more on the next slide. Again, I think we're often investing in areas that match our mission statement as a company. So how can we be the partner of choice for hospitals and health systems and pharma? How can we drive more personalized health solutions? How can we lead in specialty testing? All the things that are really growth areas in the diagnostics segment is where we're focused on delivering new solutions and trying to invest to help companies get over some of the key minefields that exist today. And so I'm probably running low on time to give you a sense of what we're thinking about this year and beyond. AI drug development has been a big area for us, specifically novel alternative models. How can we use AI again in mostly imaging and pathology indications? One of our previous investments in PathAI was just acquired by Roche. That was a very large exit, but similar themes. How can we continue to iterate on that solution? Alternative health benefits, decentralized longitudinal hormone testing has been another one, and that crosses over with a lot of our at-home testing that we've been investing in. Precision care and autoimmune disease, that probably even applies beyond just autoimmune, neurology, as was spoken about, oncology, other areas. And then novel tests and biomarkers in the women's health space, specifically thinking about cardiovascular disease and endometriosis has been an area that we've been focused on for quite some time, and it probably overlaps with most of our portfolio. So that said, I hope I've given you a sense. We invest across the healthcare continuum. We try and advance novel innovations and give insight and go beyond just the check, provide some guidance to these companies, help them learn through our experiences. Happy to chat with anybody. Unfortunately, I do have a hard out at 5, but hopefully I can catch any of you after the event here. Otherwise, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm also a newly minted EIR, so if you happen to be in the Yale network, feel free to reach me there. But thanks for the time.
Thank you. Very interesting. I didn't know LabCorp had a venture arm.
Yeah.
So next up, I'd like to introduce Lawrence Petit-Ferrer from Castor Capital.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. My name is Lawrence Petit-Ferrer. I'm the fund manager over at Castor Capital. We are a seed stage venture fund in the biotech space, and we do some deep tech investing. What we like to do in Castor Capital is really, executive summary is about collaborating with early stage scientists to kind of bridge the early stage biotech development gap. We think that early stage development that is being done in the lab is critical, and we hope that that scientific innovation can translate from the early stage into clinical ready assets. So some of the things that we do is we provide operational expertise, and the goal is to bridge that gap. And as we know, we like to think of drug development as a relay race. The 4 main pieces are discovery, and then you pass the baton on to clinical development, to preclinical development, then to clinical development, and then to commercialization. And what we want to focus on is that preclinical area. A lot of great scientists have this innovative science, but they haven't had the experience of doing actual drug development. And for us, we want to bring that experience into the work that they're doing. So there's a huge capabilities gap in translating that work with preclinical studies necessary to translate from the drug discovery into a clinical ready asset. It's also a strategic white space. I think right now we know there's a funding gap in the seed stage of drug development, and we want to fill that funding gap as an early stage venture fund. And one of the key pieces too is, I think, capital efficiency in life sciences. I think we need in biotech and drug development, there's a need for capital efficiency so that we can create optionality as we develop our assets, especially with ongoing competition from other regions. And we know there's a $20 billion patent cliff, and there are, in 2025, there's about $390 billion worth of deals in the life sciences space, and 30% of that of those deals are occurred in the preclinical and phase 1 stage of development. And for us, that's a key data point for how we can translate the work into early opportunities to collaborate with large pharma. So just a little bit about myself. So I'm a pharmacist by training. I did my postdoc at Rutgers University in collaboration with Johnson & Johnson. And in my program, we had about 100 postdocs in the program scattered across a number of pharmaceutical companies. And after that, I did regulatory affairs for a number of years, supporting early stage to commercial products, all in regulatory affairs in different modalities. And those two things are very critical for what our strategy is, right? So first, there's a huge network of individuals that we can tap into. And then there's the experience of working hands-on with scientists to help translate their work, not only to leadership, but also to regulators. And we think those two pieces are critical for early stage companies to get through the early stage of development. And then part of our process is also thinking about scientific foundation. That's critical for us. That's how you differentiate. For us, if your assets not differentiate from a scientific perspective, that's a gap for our ability to invest. We invest to IND. For us, that's a critical value inflection point. Again, the operational expertise, and then we think biotech is a path to replenish big pharma's pipeline. So for us, that's a critical part of what we want to do. Kind of went over this partnership part and focus strategy and the deep tech. I'm not going to go over that. And this is a little bit about my background. I did Biogen. I did focus on neuroscience and Biogen. So as you can see, when I present, we're going to have some neuroscience companies. I worked at Takeda. We did some rare disease development. That's a key part of what we're interested in is rare disease also. And then while I was doing all this work, I wanted to better understand strategy and finance. I ended up going to business school at Sloan. Transformed my life, but also the idea of working with startups, that's where the idea came from. And within the company, within the fund, we have these three main advisors. We work with other advisors, but these are the ones that we work most consistently with. Jonathan Fleming is professor at MIT. He's raised a number of funds in the biotech space, and he supports us to better understand how we can focus the fund in the right types of strategies. Gaurav is a CEO at a biotech startup. He supports us in understanding how the CEO thinks, how we can better strategically collaborate with the CEOs. And then Namita has done translational science, so that's a huge part of the work that we want to do, is support these teams with the translational work. Within the fund, we have, this is Fund 1's information. It's a seed stage. For therapeutics, we write check size of $500K to $1 million. And for deep tech, we write check size of $100 to $250K, a smaller part of the portfolio. And these are the companies in our portfolio. Antigenics is an ADC asset in triple-negative breast cancer. And Monument is developing, Antigenics is in triple-negative breast cancer out of Rutgers and Georgetown. Monument is developing Alzheimer's disease, small molecules out of IU. We also have a company, Vincera. They're doing small molecules for Parkinson's disease. We do our deep tech investments right out of MIT. So those two companies, Absentia and Vertical, are AI-based companies that support. Absentia does predicting in the early stage, and Vertical is a semiconductor company. And my information is provided here. If you'd like to talk to us more about our strategy, how we support early stage scientists, and how we translate early science into clinical development, please reach out. I have my phone number. Nice text messages, please. Don't text message anything crazy. And I have my email there also. Thanks.
That's a bold move, getting out your phone number. But great to see a fellow Rutgers pharmacy grad doing cool things, and hopefully you add some Yale startups to that portfolio. So next, I'd like to welcome Chris Potts from Persephone Biopartners.
Thank you, Ronak. Thank you. Chris Potts, nice to meet you all. Persephone Biopartners, and what I'm going to say is similar to what some other people have already said. I think it's a recognized gap in the market is the translational medicine part. Sorry. Oh, you're good. Oh, sorry about that. You're fine. So what Persephone is, we are an early stage venture studio, and we're majority women owned. My business partners are women, and about 75% of our employees are as well. So from both an ownership and a operations perspective, it's a big part of what we do and how we operate. But what we focus on exclusively is early stage therapeutics. We specialize in helping therapeutics companies really go from 0 to 1. And in our context, what that means is coming from great institutions like Yale and getting to first in human as fast as possible, as efficiently as possible. The way that we do that is we actually help operate the companies. And what I mean when I say, what I always like to say is we write checks, but we don't write checks into companies that we don't help operate. Help operate is a flexible thing to say, but at its core, we embed into every company, at minimum, a program lead or a project manager. We think project management is the core essence of running a drug development drill fast and efficiently, and most biotechs don't know to hire one or can't afford to, and many other reasons it just doesn't happen. So it's kind of a given, is if you work with us, you will have a program lead working with you as your right hand to make sure that all the CROs are doing what they're supposed to do, that all the things happen when they're supposed to happen. We then flexibly support all the subject matter experts that you would need to run a drug company around our founders and around our companies. So whether that's me as the chief business officer, I'm a lawyer, 15 years training, former head of intellectual property for Lonza Cell and Gene Therapy, Lonza Biologics, CAR T company called Legend Biotech. So me from a legal perspective as an example of a subject matter expert that you have at your fingertips and thinking about how do we structure transactions when we want to go work with Lilly at Gateway Labs or whomever it is that is knocking on your door as a biotech. CSO, CMO, COO, all of those SMEs are held at the Persephone level and then support all of the biotechs in our portfolio. We do write checks, so that's the operational side. We earn equity as a co-founder. We don't have to call ourselves a co-founder, but that's how we feel about it. We are there with you to help run that company. So we do earn common shares in our portfolio as sweat equity alongside you, but then we also invest cash. We typically invest minimum $500,000 up to about $1.5 million. That would essentially be your first check-in, kind of replace what would normally be an angel, friends and family round, that capital that really gets you going, coming right out of Yale. Secondly, then, we have a seed fund that we're finalizing and raising right now. It'll be live by the end of this year. That will lead seed rounds, looking to write checks of about $5 million into the portfolio. Currently have 4 companies in the portfolio, term sheets out and negotiating with 2 others, looking to build to 12 by this time next year, so looking to add 1 every couple months. All therapy modalities, CAR T, exosomes, small molecules, you name it, we have it, we will do it. Looking at disease spaces where we can make a large impact on an unmet need. Not looking for incremental changes to spaces that are saturated, but rather looking at diseases that where we can make a big impact. Based in North Carolina, we have a wet lab where all of our companies are free to use and welcome to use in our portfolio called the Clinical Impact Studio right outside of Duke University. We don't require it, though. Some of our companies use it, some don't. And I'll leave you with that. Lastly, we do have a strategic partnership with the American Cancer Society, their Bright Edge innovation arm. So we work very closely with them to look into their grantee network and into their investment network in order to help build more companies out of that grantee pool. So about half of our companies are oncology, but as I said earlier, we're agnostic. So great to meet you, and please reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. You see, Chris is a lawyer. That's why we got the disclaimer. So, but he's happy to chat with you afterwards without charging you an hourly fee. So, please take advantage of that. With that, my time here is done of moderating, so I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Rena Yan.
Thanks, Ronak. It's my great pleasure to introduce 4 amazing female investors in the next few minutes. So first up, we have Ivanka Desoida from Foreground Capital.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? No. Oh. There's an on button. Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Ivanka de Souza. I am a biomedical scientist turned investor at Foreground Capital, and I am really excited to be able to share with you today what we are excited about at Foreground and what we look for in startups in the women's health innovation space. So Foreground Capital is an impact-first, women's health-focused venture firm. The Foreground team has been doing this since 2019, first as RH Capital, where we focused and still focus on closing the women's health gap. And we've, over the last several years, built the largest women's health portfolio focused on conditions that uniquely affect women. And as part of Foreground Fund 3, we have expanded that scope to include conditions that disproportionately and differently affect women. And so I spoke about the women's health gap earlier today at the Women's Health Track panel, but essentially it's this enormous unmet medical need for women across virtually all disease categories due to underinvestment and a poor appreciation of sex differences in women. And Foreground is really mission-driven towards closing that gap. We feel that this is the right time. There's incredible momentum building behind the women's health space due to a number of converging factors, and we feel the space is ripe for innovation and for returns. And we're excited to leverage our strong track record, our deep technical expertise, and network to make inroads in this space. And we are focusing our investments on the seed and Series A stage startups with the ability to lead and catalyze rounds. Our check size ranges from $1 to $3 million to this end. We are very data-driven, and the data show that women's health as an investment category has shown remarkable resilience in the broader VC downturn. The women's health investment grew 3.2x from 2019 and reached a peak of $2.6 billion in 2024. But as you can see on the far right, despite comprising 50% of the population, women's health investment only was 4.5% as part of broader healthcare VC, and we want to change that. So this is our portfolio from RH Capital Funds 1 and 2, focused on conditions that uniquely affect women, so covering maternal health, contraception, pelvic health, fertility, vaginal microbiome, and women's oncology. We like to be a through-and-through partner with our companies. We really work closely with our companies. Even after we have rolled off of the board, we are just one call away. And we just made our first investment out of Foreground Capital Fund 3 in SimpliFed, which is a maternal baby feeding support and telelactation company in the tech-enabled services space. And so just to get a little bit more granular on our investment scope, so focus on conditions that uniquely affect women. This is companies that are developing solutions for menopause, endometriosis, and maternal health. When we say we focus on conditions that disproportionately affect women, this is conditions like autoimmune disease, Alzheimer's, migraine, any condition where women make up greater than 65% of the patient population would be in scope for us. And then we also invest in conditions that differently affect women, such as cardiovascular disease, specifically coronary microvascular dysfunction or heart valve conditions, diabetes, and lung cancer. And here, we really want to see to figure out if you are in scope, we really want to see how your solution is specifically addressing female physiology and women's health and the unmet gap that women specifically face in this particular indication. We invest across multiple healthcare segments, from therapeutics, devices, diagnostics, tech-enabled services, and digital health, with some consumer health. As I mentioned, we do seed and Series A investments with some Series B, depending on the venture dynamics. And finally, as an impact-first fund, we align all of our investments to our impact pillars of transformative innovation. So does your solution materially change the current treatment paradigm and drive disease modification? Access and affordability, which largely do go hand in hand, and by that I mean we have a preference for reimbursed products. If you have, in therapeutics this is fairly straightforward, but if you have a digital health therapeutic or offering that's currently cash pay, we would still love to speak if there's a path to reimbursement. And we also care deeply about systemic change, where historically marginalized populations are going to be uniquely served by your offering. And there we look for things like what is the percentage of your patients or your providers that are from these historically marginalized populations. And we also have a focus on the US market. We invest globally, but we need to see a near-term focus on the U.S. market or an immediate focus on the U.S. market. And with that, this is our team. We have broad and deep expertise across venture capital, finance, clinical medicine, consulting, and biomedical sciences. And if this resonates with you, please reach out. I have our pitch email address, but also you can reach out to me directly. Again, I'm Ivanka from Sri Lanka, if that helps you to remember. And yeah, we would be honored to partner with you to bring women's health front and center. Thank you.
Thank you for a great pitch. Next up, we have Human Lau from Broadview Ventures. Also, shout out to Women's Health. If you missed the panel in the morning, you could watch it on our website soon.
Hi, everyone. My name is Human, and I'm a principal at Broadview Ventures. I know it's probably a little late in the day, but if you remember nothing from my 5 minutes of talk, just remember Broadview invests in cardiovascular disease. So we are an early stage investor, seed Series A, that's based out of Boston. And as I've mentioned, our primary focus and our only focus is in the cardiovascular disease field. We are a mission-driven organization, and we make direct investments on behalf of the LeDuc Charitable Trust, which is a family office that has had a long history of heart disease, and our mission is to improve cardiovascular disease, improve human health by investing in cardiovascular disease and stroke. So we have an evergreen model. So, unlike a typical VC timeline, we have a longer time horizon, and therefore we are willing to take on more risks and come in early. And we see ourselves as a catalyst investor in this space. So the sweet spot for us is usually to come in at late preclinical stage. So typically after a company has in vivo proof of concept data, and at the point where they might have exhausted grant funding, but still a little early to partner with strategics or gain investments from larger investments fund because they still have to de-risk the program. That's the right point typically for us to come in. We help companies to de-risk their technology all the way through to proof of concept data, at that point that ideally they could then move on to get larger investments or partner with a strategic partner. So just briefly, when I say cardiovascular, what do we mean? So we actually define cardiovascular really broadly. So that includes, any disorders that's related to the heart, so your typical heart failure, myocardial infarction, but we also include risk factors as part of our mandate. So obesity, diabetes, obstructive sleep apnea, and then vascular conditions, both peripheral and neurovascular. And last but not least, any pathways that contribute to cardiovascular disease, fibrosis, inflammation, for example, as it pertains to the cardiovascular disease, those are all within our mandate. Beyond our cardiovascular focus, we are relatively flexible in many other regards. So we're technology agnostic. So we invest in both therapeutics and medtech, as well as diagnostics. And then in terms of our check size, our initial check size typically ranges between $1 to $3 million. And we have the ability to put in additional follow-on financing of additional 6 to 8. So over the life of a company, we can invest up to $10 to $12 million. We typically syndicate. We can lead, we can co-lead, we can follow. We're relatively flexible. And, we are typically, I think one of the key value that Broadview brings to the table is not just the check that we write, but more importantly is our expertise in the cardiometabolic field, because we have been in this space since 2009. So we are very well connected with KOLs, with PIs in the space. So we have a lot to contribute from that perspective. I actually realized that I don't have my contact information in here, but I will hang out in this room. So please feel free to come up to me and talk, and I have my business cards that will have my contact information. Thank you.
Thank you. That's an amazing pitch. Next up, we have Nanaya Masha from Pure Light.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nanaya Mensa Thomas, and I'm really happy to be here with you today to talk about Pure Light Ventures and what we're doing in the ecosystem. So special thanks to the Blavatnik Fund Innovation Team, the Yale Innovation Summit Committee, and Yale Ventures for having me here today as an emerging manager. So just a little bit of background about myself and what drew me into the venture space is I spent 22 years working on the bench at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, and I was a research and also clinical scientist, and also for infectious diseases and diagnostic molecular pathology. And in addition to that, I was the QA and QC lead in diagnostic molecular pathology at Memorial. I also invest with VU Venture Partners. I'm a mentor at Techstars, Nucleate. I also am a judge at MSK and Amazon's new venture. I review at EMEA. I also direct Project 2.8, which is an incubator that is geared towards women founders that come out of the Columbia University ecosystem. And it's called 2.8 because much like Ivanka was talking about, during the time that it was actually created, only 2.8 of women founders actually got venture funding. So it's really there to help change that and make it more equitable. I have my CLT license. I also graduated in finance from Columbia Business School, and I got my BA at Grinnell College in MCBD. And so just to talk briefly about the investment thesis, we'll go a little bit more into it a little bit later. We're launching a translational science-based, healthcare-specific venture capital firm. Now, we invest in startups up to Series A, but we have a sweet spot in seed stage. And we are doing this comprehensively, and we're doing this based on my background as a scientist and also the network that I've been able to build with fellow scientists and ecosystem partners in VC. So I talk about gold standard due diligence only to clarify what we're looking for at Pure Light Ventures when it comes to the companies that we found. And we are looking for companies that we're able to see that are de-risked, and we do this using our scientific-based thought patterns and also just really diving into papers and getting real-world evidence of the scientific innovations. We look for strong IP. We look at IND inflection points and either FDA approvals or pathways to FDA approval. We have a robust pipeline that we'd like many of the founders at Yale to be part of. We also have a great network. And we like to identify breakthroughs early on and then balance them with technical risk and also market risk evaluation. We also look at moats. So that's really important to us. We want to make sure that the company can really stand on its own, even though there is sometimes competition that they may have to face. And we look at digital technology in terms of vertical and horizontal applications, and strongly believe that an ethical investment can be our most lucrative investment. And so we are agnostic within healthcare, but we look at these particular sub-verticals, and they are life sciences, biotechnology, healthcare AI, enterprise, and SaaS as a medical device. I love thinking about enterprise as well, coming out of a hospital system, because I really consider a hospital a hotel that happens to treat patients as well. And so just to give an overview of everything that we're doing, Our stage is seed stage. We can go up to Series A. We are building a $25 million fund. We're looking to fund 40 companies. Our estimated investment size is $100K to $1 million. Our pre-money valuation, we like to see anywhere from $3 million to $15 million. And as far as ownership is concerned, up to $15 million, we are flexible. And the companies need to be filed in the US. And they don't necessarily have to be in the US, but they have to want to have a market presence and file here. The last thing I will say is that our value add to our founders is, of course, seed investment, but then co-investment opportunities with other VCs in our network, support our founders through strategic introductions, and then also introduce customers to our founders while taking part in markups through follow-on. And we like to reserve about 20% of the fund for follow-on investment. So thank you so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to meeting many of you in the breakout room.
Thank you so much. We have the last pitch session from Meitan Chui from Patient Partner Capital.
Hi, everyone. I'm the last one, so bear with me. I am May. I am the co-founder of Patient Partner Capital. We are an early-stage VC firm based in Boston. Our thesis is that integrating patient insights into early science will bring better outcomes. Our focus is on women's health. So, for those of you who were this morning at the Women's Health panel, women's health, especially in the therapeutic setting, it's still very hard to develop. And just take the case of endometriosis. It's a condition that affects 10% of women in reproductive age. However, it still takes 7 to 10 years to diagnose. Biology is complicated, it's heterogeneous. Two patients can have the same diagnosis. However, the symptoms will differ. Biology is different, and also the fertility impact is different. And despite all this, there are limited therapies for endometriosis, for those that are really addressing the root cause. And if this was not enough, endometriosis affects, the economic burden of endometriosis is about billion dollars per year in the US. So there's a lot of gaps. And unfortunately, this is not only the case of endometriosis, this is a case of many conditions in women's health. And as Ivanka has already mentioned, there are three main pillars that are addressed today in women's health: those that are exclusive to women's health, those that are different, and those that are disproportionate, and these are the conditions that we are looking at beyond gynecologic. So going back to the development of therapeutics, many failures happen before proof of concept, as many of you know. There's been, in the translational stage, there's a lot of questions that we are still not asking. Like, for example, do we have a biomarker? Are we identifying the correct patient population? How does the patient journey look like? Is this dosage or this formulation of the medication adequate? And because we're not asking these questions early on, there's a lot of time and money wasted during the clinical stage. And so we believe that earlier validation is essential. And as you know, as everyone has been talking about, there's this very funny situation now for early stage founders, because on one hand, pharma is going through this patent cliffs that Lawrence mentioned. They're also very concerned because 70% of innovation pharma comes from external companies. However, there's a higher bar for early stage founders today. A lot of technologies are asked to be de-risked before they receive an investment from an institutional fund. So there's this double-edged sword, and in women's health, it's even more complicated. So enter Patient Partner Capital. Our thesis is, if we help early stage companies de-risk their technologies early on with the right questions in integrating patient insights, they will be better prepared to scale and also be prepared for an exit strategy. So what we want is to connect with founders in the women's health space because as we know, it's underserved, underinvested, and there's a huge unmet need, but a huge business opportunity as well. And we will provide our expertise to support these early stage founders to de-risk their strategies and prepare them for eventually scaling or an exit. My co-founder and I, we are both biopharma veterans. We work in big pharma, venture-backed startups, and we also are working with a team of strategic advisors, also in the biopharma space, and we're building this expert network. So if any of you have an expertise that's not listed here or is listed here and want to be part of this, let's build it together. Right now, we're currently raising Fund 1. So this is a very new fund. It's been less than 6 months, about 6 months that we've been building this. Our goal is to have our first capital close by Q1 next year. So this is good timing. If you're a founder in this space and are looking for their first check, just connect with us because it's good timing for us. Our investment focus is pre-seed, seed, and we want to follow on those promising companies up to Series A. And our focus is women's health, mostly therapeutics, but also interested in learning about some promising diagnostics and platform strategies. So thank you. I'm May and happy to connect with you.
Thank you. I just want to